The last time sea levels were where they are today was approximately 7,000 years ago. Before that, the ocean was lower, in some regions by 300 feet, in others by more. The coastlines of every continent were different. The land that is now the seafloor was dry. People lived on it. This is not contested geology. What is contested is what those people built before the water came. Off the southern coast of Japan, at 90 feet depth, there is a stone formation the size of the Titanic. Staircases, terraces, right angles at a precision geology does not produce. The archaeologists who have dived it cannot agree on whether it is natural or constructed. They have been disagreeing since 1987. In the Gulf of Khambhat, off India's coast, sonar surveys map structures extending for miles at 130 feet depth, where sea level data confirms dry land 9,000 years ago. Off Cuba, at 2,200 feet, a robotic submarine found stone structures arranged in a grid. The researchers described them as resembling an urban complex. The follow-up expedition was never funded. Before we start, drop a comment telling us where you are watching from and what time it is right now. We want to see how many countries this video reaches. Start with the one the scientists agree on. Off the southern coast of Greece, in 10 to 15 feet of water, lies the oldest submerged city ever mapped, Pavlopetri. At least 3000 BC, older than Stonehenge, older than the Great Pyramid. Streets, rooms with standing walls, a cemetery, storage buildings, a water management system implying engineering knowledge and a population large enough to need it. It went under gradually, subsidence and sea level rise. Not a catastrophe. The residents eventually left. The buildings stayed exactly where they were. Pavlopetri is the clean version of this story. Geology understood, chronology accepted. The other sites in this video are less clean. The Mahabharata, one of ancient India's two great Sanskrit epics, describes a city called Dwarka, gold and stone, surrounded by walls, claimed by the sea when the god Krishna departed. Indian archaeologists treated Dwarka as mythology. In 1983, marine archaeologists surveyed the seabed off modern Dwarka in Gujarat. At 30 to 40 feet depth, a fortification wall, stone blocks in a defensive perimeter. Artifacts dated to 1500 to 3000 BC, when sea level data confirms this coast was dry. The city was not mythology. It was a real place the sea actually claimed. Archaeologist S.R. Rao described it as evidence of a highly developed urban civilization, comparable to Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, which were in the textbooks. Dwarka was not. It was underwater. Why do you think ancient texts describing real cities get classified as mythology until someone actually looks? Drop your answer in the comments. 60 miles north of Dwarka, the story gets larger and more contested. In 2001, India's National Institute of Ocean Technology was running routine pollution surveys in the Gulf of Khambhat. They were not looking for archaeology. The sonar returned a grid, geometric patterns at 130 feet depth, streets, building foundations, a drainage system running 5 miles along an ancient river channel. The Indian government announced the find. The Minister of Science and Technology described it as evidence of a civilization predating the Indus Valley by several thousand years, the oldest urban civilization ever found on Earth. One dredged wood sample carbon dated to approximately 7,500 BC, when sea level data confirms this location was dry land. The academic establishment pushed back. The sonar showed natural formations. The dating was unreliable. Proper excavation was needed before any claims. That excavation has not been conducted. The sonar images remain the most complete record anyone has. In 2000, Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic, sent an ROV to the Black Sea floor off Turkey. At 311 feet, the cameras found a carved wooden beam, a worked stone, a corner of a structure preserved in oxygen-free water exactly as it was left on the day the water came. The site has never been excavated. The funding was not there. But the find confirmed what sea level data always implied. People lived on what is now the Black Sea floor. They built there. They left things behind. In a body of water that preserves wood and stone better than any archive, those things are still there. Ballard estimated similar sites are scattered across the full floor from Turkey to Ukraine. That survey has not been conducted. In 1987, a dive instructor searching for hammerhead sharks off Yonaguni, Japan's westernmost island, closer to Taiwan than to the mainland, found something else. At 15 to 90 feet depth, across a seafloor area the size of 2 city blocks, a stone formation unlike anything in the regional geology. Massive flat-top terraces, each precisely level. Walls meeting at right angles, 90 degrees, the angle natural geological processes do not reliably produce. A feature divers call the turtle, a large flat stone with a carved perimeter wall. A feature divers call the star, a flat stone stage flanked by columns. And one feature almost no one disputes is artificial, a stone path, 2 meters wide, running in a straight line for 10 meters along the base of the main structure. Professor Masaki Kimura spent 15 years diving the site and concluded it was a constructed monument, a castle or ceremonial complex above sea level at least 10,000 years ago. The Japanese geological establishment's position: natural sandstone fracturing, mimicking construction. Both positions have problems. The fracture explanation does not account for the path, the turtle wall, or the spatial relationship between features. Kimura's construction hypothesis does not account for why no unambiguous human artifacts have been recovered. The debate has run for 37 years. The formation sits on the seafloor, entirely indifferent to the argument above it. If this is the kind of story that makes you want to keep watching, hit the like and subscribe. Because what comes after Yonaguni is considerably harder to explain. Not every submerged city is ancient. Port Royal, Jamaica, the largest English-speaking city in the Americas in the 17th century, known as the wickedest city on earth, sank in 2 minutes on June 7, 1692, after an earthquake liquefied the ground. 2,000 people died. 2/3 of the city went under the harbor. The city is still there. The most intact 17th century city in the world. Tavern signs still over doorways, interiors still furnished. Archaeologists have been working the site since the 1960s. They have excavated less than 2% of it. Port Royal is included here for one reason. If a city this complete, this recent, and this documented is 98% unexcavated, what does that tell us about the sites that are older, deeper, and less famous? Between Britain and Europe lies the North Sea. Until 8,200 years ago, it was not there. The area geologists call Doggerland, roughly the size of Germany, connected Britain to Denmark and the Netherlands. Rivers, forests, wetlands. People lived there for thousands of years. We know because trawlers have been pulling its artifacts for a century: mammoth teeth, aurochs bones, Mesolithic tools, a 10,000-year-old barbed antler harpoon caught in a net in 1931, now in a British museum. We have the tools. We do not have the structures. No one has looked for them systematically. In 2020, a University of Bradford project began mapping the Doggerland seafloor using seismic data from oil companies. People who make harpoons and hunt mammoths do not sleep in the open. The structures are almost certainly there. Doggerland is not a mystery about ancient advanced civilization. It is a straightforward mystery about ordinary people who lived in a place we forgot existed because the sea covered it before anyone wrote anything down. During the last glacial maximum, 20,000 years ago, Mediterranean sea levels were roughly 400 feet lower. Sicily was connected to Italy, Malta to Sicily. There was dry land between Tunisia and Italy, narrow enough to see across. Every ancient Mediterranean civilization, built on coastlines thousands of years newer than the ones the first modern humans walked. The ports of the people before them are on the continental shelves of countries that have not surveyed them. Greek and Italian marine archaeologists have found Bronze Age harbor structures at depth suggesting construction during lower sea levels, documented, not fully excavated. Several damaged by trawling before protection orders were in place. The Mediterranean shelf is one of the most historically significant unexplored territories on Earth, not because it is difficult to reach, but because no one has funded the expeditions. This one is not yet submerged, but it is going under, and it should be impossible. Off the eastern coast of Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia sits the largest archaeological site in the Pacific, Nan Madal, a city on artificial islands in a tidal lagoon, basalt columns stacked without mortar into walls 25 feet high and 17 feet thick. Total weight, an estimated 750,000 metric tons. The basalt was quarried from the other side of the island and transported across open water. No one knows how. The local oral tradition, twin sorcerers flew the stones into place. The engineering analysis, no known Pacific technology of that era, accounts for transport and placement at this scale. The archaeological establishment, the method of construction, remains unknown. Nan Madal is on UNESCO's World Heritage List. It is also on UNESCO's list of World Heritage in danger, sinking into the lagoon, funding to stabilize it not secured. The largest archaeological site in the Pacific is being lost to the sea, while how it was built remains officially unanswered. The Cuba Deep. Everything in this video sits at depths between 10 and 400 feet, consistent with sea level change over the past 20,000 years. The site off western Cuba does not fit that framework. In 2001, Canadian company Advanced Digital Communications was conducting sonar surveys off the Guanahacoibes Peninsula. Their sonar operator noticed anomalies at 2,200 feet. Second pass confirmed it. Massive stone structures in a regular grid, some pyramidal, some rectilinear, covering approximately 7.7 square miles. In 2002, an ROV returned footage of large smooth stone blocks that do not form naturally at that depth. The team's description: very peculiar stone formations, very symmetrical. Here is the problem: 2,200 feet. Sea levels have never been 2,200 feet lower than today. Not in the last several million years, not during any ice age. If the structures are constructed, the sea level explanation does not work. Either they were built at depth, implying technology with no parallel in any known civilization, or the Cuban shelf subsided by nearly half a mile, implying a geological event with no regional analog. The follow-up expedition was planned, announced, and never executed. The sonar data and ROV footage remain the only record. What is at 2,200 feet off Cuba is not known. No institution is committed to finding out. Here is what connects every site in this video. Not mystery, not ancient advanced civilization, not lost technology or floods, inattention. Pavlopetri was known to fishermen for generations before anyone mapped it. Dwarka was in a sacred text read by hundreds of millions before anyone pointed sonar at the seafloor. Doggerland has been yielding artifacts from fishing nets since 1931. The sea covers 70% of the Earth's surface. Human history extends back at least 300,000 years. For most of that time, sea levels were lower. The coastlines where people concentrated are now underwater. The standard timeline of civilization begins roughly 5,000 years ago. Everything before is called prehistory, the period we don't have records for. We don't have records because the coastlines are submerged. We haven't looked because looking is expensive and yields no immediate economic return. The Cuba site is at 2,200 feet. We do not have a good explanation for it. The honest answer to who built this may simply be that our timeline does not yet account for everyone who was here. Do you think the official timeline of human civilization is missing something? Drop your answer in the comments. We will see you there.